I always say that fashion is finished. There is no fashion anymore. And I think that's a good thing. Because fashion for me is something which is, now it's in, and then 6 months later it's out of fashion. So I think clothes can't get out of fashion anymore. I don't want to shock. That's the last thing that I want to do. But I want to tease a little bit. For me, it's more interesting to have somewhere a hint of something, just like to have like one small element that you can dream around. Maybe I'm naive. I think there are a lot of very, very confident people in the world who like to play with clothes, who want to tell something about themselves with garments, who don't want to disguise them and to hide themselves behind their outfits. So clothes can tell so much about somebody. So it's such a nice tool, it's such a nice language, I think. So in that way, I really hope that people really use my clothes also to do that. Inspiration for me can come from everything. It can be flower, can be a smell, can be a poem, can be a movie, can be an artist, it can be one specific photo, just like a fragment of an artwork. And then we start to work around that. The selection of the fabrics is really a fantastic moment because I'm like a spoiled child in a candy store. For me, it's like a painter needs paint and colors to make his paintings. I need my fabrics and my prints to tell my story. You need to know the base of fashion. And in that way you can easily proceed and to mix things and you can refer to things because in my work I put so many references. It overpowers me when I stand in front of a work of Lucian Freud. I'm just like, now, okay, shut up, just look. One painting of Lucian Freud is enough to do a whole exhibition with, I think. I was working on a collection which we call the grunge collection, where I wanted to use all colors which Lucian Freud could have used. We started to make flower bouquets which are then dirty white, with then a very strange pink, with a light green and a blue and thing, all these elements. But also that kind of very raw beauty. Once I went to the exhibition of Francis Bacon in London.
People have a sense that your work as a whole is horrific.
Well, the thing is, I've always hoped to put over things as directly and rawly as I possibly can, and perhaps if a thing comes across directly, they feel that is horrific.
It was the most horrible, beautiful thing what I've ever seen. I didn't know if I had to hate it or love it. It was just, it's so intense. Then I said, okay, maybe it would be a challenge, but I would like once to try to not to inspire myself on the art of Bacon, but really to on the emotion which I get from seeing all that work, and to say, okay, now that shock, that hurt, that beauty and that ugliness at the same time, how can I translate it in the colors and in a collection, and what type of garment does that represent then for me? For me, it's the way that an artist looks to certain things, so sometimes more than the final result. Most of the time I want to understand what was going through his brain that he made something like this, so that I can follow their way of thinking, because this is also the way that I work with my own paint, which is the fabrics. Traditional painting has been in my life for always. My grandfather was a collector of paintings. In my parents' house also, there were always paintings against the walls. Of course, not of the big names, but there always has been classic paintings around me. When you live in a city like Antwerp, it's part of your life. I went to Antwerp Fashion School, to the academy, and it was a very traditional education in fashion. So it was a lady who was called Madame Prigeot, who had very severe rules. Madame Prigeot gave us a lot of restrictions. And for her, Coco Chanel was the best designer in the world.
Je dis la vérité.
C'est vrai.
C'est vrai, c'est tout à fait vrai.
Knees were the most ugly part of a woman, so you could never make an outfit where you saw the knees. Girls had their hair in queue de cheval or short hair, but it was impossible to have long, loose hair. It was untidy. Jeans were for poor people. We couldn't wear jeans. So we couldn't show this, we couldn't do that, we couldn't put those two colors together, we couldn't use those type of materials. But when you have restrictions, you have to be even more creative. So it was really like that, and of course running a fashion student group like that in the late 70s, where it was punk and all these things, it was completely like, so we became really rebels.
Rebel, rebel, torn your dress. Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess. Rebel, rebel.
Bowie, of course, is a hero. Such a rich person, so many different layers. Maybe it's good that I didn't meet him, because I think I would be so flabbergasted that I wouldn't know what to ask him or what to say to him.
We saw pictures of your planet on television.
I was a little bit scared, in fact, to inspire a collection now on Bowie, so it was just like in a very careful way. And then I was very happy again that Bowie gave us the permission to rework Golden Years and Heroes, both for the menswear and womenswear of that season, so that was fantastic. Having to find a soundtrack for 4 fashion shows a year already obliges me to listen to music also in a different way, in a very open way.
Darling. Darling. Waltz with me. Darling.
I did something really beautiful with Malcolm McLaren. I made a collection which was called Punk, and we asked Malcolm McLaren to make the soundtrack. He didn't want to see any images, he just needed some words and some hints. But he said, don't say the words, shout them. Because my collection was inspired on 50s couture mixed with punk influences. So we used Vertigo mixed with punk groups you never heard of and things like that, with cowbells from the Alps, and it was a whole symphony what he created.
We bow to employer, we bow to God, and the planes did wings in victory rolls and salute the power.
I never was a punk. I approached more punk by the aesthetical and the fashion thing, which maybe the women's is more subtle rebel than the men's, because youth cultures in men often are a little bit more rebellious. Chariots of Fire was a very aesthetic, beautiful film, which was very nostalgic. It brought back that 1920s feeling in a beautiful, beautiful way. It was really like a whole mood of a whole period. It did something to menswear, which was enormous. Very important, I think. It was a film where it was the aesthetical thing which was very taken over by fashion. Film forces you to go into the world of somebody, and there is a logic in it. It takes your hand and takes you from one thing to another. It's a very beautiful film, a very romantic film. I decided, okay, what would happen when somebody falls into the water? She stays on the base of the sea and she comes out afterwards. all the silhouettes were completely clinged to the body, so completely fitted, so it was like all the garments were wet. It was a very fun thing because on an old-fashioned photocopy machine you could put a piece of lace, and then while the photocopy was taken you pull the lace away, so everything feels like dripping. Making collections is a constant struggle. For men, we are doing show number 99. For women, it's going to be show number 100, which is, of course, kind of a scary thing. So the idea for me is that we start the music in the dark, so because the room is completely dark. The music starts, 20 seconds, the first girl comes in, light goes on. I want to celebrate and I don't want to celebrate. I want that people know it and I don't know it at show number 100. But we do something special with it. It's going to be a celebration of 100 collections, but done in a completely new way. Dresses from what you call the Francis Bacon collection from 2008. So we make a collection, in fact, with all old prints, but we put a layer on top of it. We put all very bright graphical motifs on top of the old prints. We do it also with maybe not too much respect. But that's what it's something, that shocking thing again, which I'm really very happy with. Takes a bit of tension away from the whole thing. Too much. It's still a learning process because I think the moment I don't learn anymore, I better stop. The white one was... because the last thing what I want is that it becomes kind of a system. And the most what I'm really scared of, that things are getting systematic and that it feels like a recipe. Okay, Dries Van Noten, it's a fancy fabric, it's a color, it's some ethnic, it's an easy shape, put it in the blender and here you have Dries Van Noten collection. When that would be the case, I would stop immediately because then for me the fun is over. I think gardening is a very good counterbalance when you're also in fashion. Fashion is very fast, it's very light. In fashion, you try to control everything. On a fashion show, if you want snow, you can have snow. If you want rain, you can have rain. We had once a fashion show with fake rain. So in that way, it's quite good that you have a garden where you're forced to follow the rhythm of the seasons. In that way, a garden is fantastic because it dictates you, and in fashion, we try to dictate everybody else. We don't advertise, so fashion show for me is my main way of communication, so where I put all the things together. It's not only choosing models and deciding hair and makeup, it's the light, is the white light, yellow light, what's the sound, how do they walk, what's the whole atmosphere what you create. I don't know if fashion is art. I think fashion, it's still at the end of the thing, it has to sell, otherwise, what's the sense of it? I create clothes, I tell my story on the fashion show, I show the way that I want, but afterwards the garments have to be bought and worn by people who do their own thing with it. It's not me who is going to dictate, like now you have to wear it like this, because that's the vision which I had. It has no sense to make nostalgic fashion. I love the past, I want to know a lot about it, I want to see, I want to learn, I want to understand it. But it's not that I want to live now in the past. I want to live now and I want to live in the future, and I want to make also clothes for that. But I don't want to forget the past, because I think especially in fashion, but you need the culture, you need the knowledge of the past. The Musée des Arts Décoratifs came to me to do a show where I explain people how I work, because I don't want that it was like a fin de carrière, look, this is my body of work and that's it. In that way, for me, it was far more interesting to show the way that my brain is working, that it's not only high art and more expensive pieces, but it's also fun things, all these levels of inspiration which make a collection. I'm still very happy that they gave me the chance to bring together the most beautiful art, but also putting there then sometimes posters of Bollywood films and all these things. It was an amazing time going to the stockrooms of the museum, pulling open the drawers and then to see the most iconic pieces, but seeing also a full collection of underwear of the 50s still in original packaging, and finding then all the shoes of Le Baron de Redé and all these things. So it's not only like the iconic pieces, but you see there also, you see everything, all different levels. And that's also so amazing. Of course, I was like a spoiled kid that I could put all those things together, things which I loved so much for such a long time. Traveling my mind is the way that I love to travel. When I make collections, I want to have a lot of information, but also not too much information, because I want to not to start to copy. I think you have to look to the world with an open eye. I think there are so much things to discover and to see. That's why I think I find my drive still, I think, in that the fact that I still can discover and see the whole time. And I think that the moment I would stop creating fashion, I would try to find something else which challenges me again to continue to look for things. Because I'm not the person to say now, okay, now I had it and now I take a book and just gonna read somewhere quietly in a corner. No, I just want to look around, to meet people, to see and discover.